Hello, my name is DeAnna Parker, and I am here to talk to you today about the CPS-CFS Child Welfare System. We will begin with our agenda, and that will be as follows with mental health and children in foster care. And we'll move on to the history of CPS-CFS. After, I will give some information regarding tribal CFS and ICWA, and moving on to several real-life cases. Thank you. Mental health and foster care. The emotional trauma of removal from all that is familiar and placement in foster care is emotionally traumatizing for all but the youngest infants. This is compounded by the ongoing separation, losses, and uncertainty that are endemic to foster care, and that is from the American Academy of Pediatrics Committee on Early Childhood Adoption and Dependent Care. In my research, I have found several treatment interventions that can be helpful for this type of trauma. Trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, EMDR, and CBT. One study that focused on trauma-focused CBT and EMDR studies had a more positive outcome for patients who suffered from trauma and PTSD. The study also showed CBT without the trauma focus showed favorable results for the client. Based on the equal numbers of children entering the tribal CFS system, as well as the number of investigations opened on the reservation, I decided to go back to school to become a therapist. My desire was to help on a deeper level. The number of mental health providers in my community is limited to the amount of children who are in need of services. To start out, we are going to talk about the history of CFS-CPS. Child Protective Service laws were little to non-existent before 1874. Children and Family Services became a government-funded program in 1912. From 1912 until the 1960s, there were more reports of child abuse neglect, which led to CAPTA being created in 1974. And I'm going to go back a little bit, beginning with Etta Wheeler. She was the first social worker to fight against child abuse in 1874. There were no laws against child abuse during this time. Etta went to the courts and the church, but they would not help her. With the help of the founder of the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, they were able to get the young child removed from her parents. This led to the creation of the New York Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. Although there were no organized child protection laws before 1874, according to John E.B. Myers, there were cases of judges or magistrates who got involved. As early as 1642, Massachusetts had a law that gave magistrates the authority to remove children from parents who did not train up their children properly. That's Myers 2008. Child protection laws were not enacted in every state or every county, and the government was not involved until the early 1900s. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Children's Bureau 2024, the Children's Bureau Agency was formed in 1912 as the first government agency to improve the lives of children and families. The agency was formed to financially support all state and tribal child welfare services and promote positive outcomes for children and families in the child welfare system. Although the government developed the Children's Bureau to fund the CPS-CFS, there was not enough funding to cover all child protection cases in many states. According to Myers, 2008, it was not until the 1960s that the government began providing more funding to states for child protection, out-of-home placements, training, and reporting for child protection and placement of children in foster homes. Myers explains, Congress passed the Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act of 1974, known as CAPTA. This organization made it possible for government funds to be put toward the response to child physical abuse and sexual abuse and the investigation and reporting. We will continue with the history of CPS, CFS, ICWA. Another critical time in CPS history to mention was in the 1960s when the National Association of Black Social Workers had taken a stand against Black children being placed with non-Black people. This movement made interracial adoptions and foster care placements more adherent to the same race. This sparked a backlog of Black children being in care for more extended periods while waiting for adoption with Black families, as there were fewer Black homes available for foster care and adoption. According to Myers, 2008, the child protection system is a difficult job, and the public seldom hears about the success stories. Most of the time, the public will listen to child protection stories when something terrible happens. In my experience, working in child welfare, being a CPS caseworker for 10 plus years is a thankless job. And I also struggled with burnout for years until I finally left my position to take a break. In this next slide, we're going to talk about tribal CFS ICWA. As discussed by Myers, 2008, before 1978, as many as 25 to 35% of Native American children were removed from their parents for alleged neglect or abuse. ICWA stands for the Indian Child Welfare Act. ICWA was enacted to protect Native children from losing their connection to their culture and their heritage. According to Myers, Congress recognized there is no resource that is more vital to the continued existence and integrity of Indian tribes than their children, and that an alarmingly high percentage of Indian families are broken up by the removal, often unwarranted, of their children from them by non-tribal public and private agencies. In my personal experience as the CFS ICWA director for the Omaha Tribe from 2020 through 2024, the ICWA department serves approximately 100 children and families, a little more or less annually. ICWA law requires any state court system that determines a child or children with Indian descendancy to actively notify the tribe of whom the child or children may be a member or eligible for membership. ICWA services include an ICWA specialist or ICWA attorney to appear in court on behalf of the tribe. The goal is to ensure the court system keeps the family together if at all possible. If this is not possible, then the next step is that the child or children are placed with an appropriate family. If that is not possible, then the child or children are placed in a native home. At times, none of the above options are possible, and the children have to be placed in a non-native home. This is done with stipulations from the tribe that the non-native foster parents are willing to keep the child or children tied to their culture. And this can look like anything from helping them learn their language, reading books to them, stories about their tribal membership, even being as active as bringing them to their home tribe, wherever that may be, and participating in, say, for instance, the powwow or any other social events that might be happening. In the child's best interest, the ICWA specialist or attorney may sometimes seek the state courts to have the case transferred to the tribal court system. At this point, the case becomes a tribal CFS member, a tribal CFS case. Moving on, we are going to talk about Sandy Whitehawk. She is the founder of the First Nations Repatriation Institute. Sandy is a member of the Sichungu tribe of the Rosebud Sioux in South Dakota. Sandy was taken from her parents at age 18 months. Sandy began healing through therapy and reconnection with her tribe and her family. According to Terry Cross in Whitehawk 2022, Sandy Whitehawk's story of adoption and return is rooted in a long and painful history. Her story is compelling, but it is the story of thousands like her. Sandy was placed in a non-native home off the reservation with missionaries who eventually adopted her. The book never mentions any visits or contact with her biological family. And after several years, the family moved to Wisconsin, taking Sandy with them. Sandy grew up not knowing who she was and struggled with her identity. She talks about constantly feeling different and not fitting in at the all-white schools. This affected her mental health, and she began to use alcohol and drugs as a way to numb and quiet her thoughts and feelings. Although Sandy does not go into detail in the book, she does talk about how she had feelings of being, or memories of being sexually abused by her adopted mother. One of the positives that she talks about is her adopted father was very caring and supporting of her. And she has fond memories of him taking her out into the field with him on the tractor and taking her fishing, and just a lot of those memories she holds near and dear to her. But unfortunately, her adopted father passed away when she was about 8 years old. And so she was still very young when she lost him, and so that left her with her adopted mother. Although she had no idea who her biological family was, she knew she was born on the Rosebud Indian Reservation. Sandy writes about being in therapy throughout her life. However, it is apparent that the most heartfelt moments of revelation and heartfelt moments were when she was connected to her family and her culture. As time went on and Sandy began to return home to the Rosebud Indian Reservation and reconnect with her biological family, her mother actually died before she went back home, so she never got to meet her mother again. Sandy describes moments of being present at cultural events, such as returning home to the Rosebud Indian Reservation to attend their annual powwow celebration and having a vision of adoptees such as herself being welcomed home with an honor song. The book mentions that Sandy was a part of a sibling group of 9 children, and she found out that all 9 children, all her siblings, were all removed from their mother. And so there were siblings that she had never met, but she continued to search for them and to reconnect and meet them. So Sandy shares her vision with a spiritual leader who encourages her to bring the vision forth, announce it, and then carry it through. Meaning, Sandy proceeded to share the vision, but also carry out the returning of adoptees at her home Rosebud powwow celebration, and actually throughout Indian country. Sandy has been called on to come to several speaking engagements to talk about the returning of adoptees ceremony, because that really is what it has become, is a ceremony. I actually was able to witness a ceremony here at our own annual celebration, and it's a calling for any of our tribal members who were adopted out and who have returned home to connect or reconnect with some of their biological families, and they were invited to come out to the circle and to dance to the song. That there is actually a song for the ceremony, and so they are asked to share in that song, and there's prayer before the song, and so it was a really awesome sight to see, and I am very happy to know that Sandy is doing this type of work for adults now who were adopted out, and to help them reconnect and to help them through their trauma. And Sandy is actually a colleague. I consider her a colleague of mine and a friend of mine. This book you see here, Child of the Indian Race, she gifted that to me at the 2022 ICWA conference that happened in Reno, Nevada. She signed my book, and it was a great time to see her and reconnect with her. And as I understand, she still continues to do the work. Next, we will talk about Miss Ashley Rhodes Couture. She was the oldest child of Lorraine. She never knew her biological father. Ashley was placed in 14 foster homes in 10 years before she was adopted at age 12. Phil and Gay Couture adopted Ashley at age 12 years old. The guardian ad litem in this case, Mary Miller, was instrumental in securing a permanency adoption plan for Ashley. Ashley suffered from profound abandonment and trust issues due to being abused in foster care, as well as her mother never being able to regain custody of her and her brother. Ashley attended therapy throughout her childhood and high school years. Ashley found it challenging to accept the secure and loving home of her adopted parents. However, after years of their supportive encouragement, she was finally able to gain trust for her adopted parents. Excuse me. At that point, Ashley was finally able to tell her adopted parents that she loved them, which is the meaning behind the name of the book, 3 Little Words. Those 3 little words that Ashley held were I love you. And the reason was because when she was removed from her biological mother, she talks about in her book how while in foster care all those years, and sometimes at times she would have visits with her biological mother, her mother would tell her that she loved her, and she wanted Ashley to say it back to her, I love you. And she also wanted Ashley to never say those words to anyone else except her, even her foster moms, her adopted moms. So those 3 little words were held such significance to Ashley. And when she finally was adopted at 12 years old, she swore she would never tell her adopted parents that she loved them, because she had promised her biological mother that she would never tell anyone else that she loved them like she did with her mother. Through the support system Phil and Gay provided, Ashley felt so strongly about the mistrusted foster parents who abused her and filed a lawsuit against them, as well as the child welfare workers who were supposed to protect her. And she actually won the lawsuit. Ashley gained so much confidence. She began writing her story in high school and focused on how every child in the foster care system needs a guardian ad litem. Phil and Gay knew some critical people in Washington, D.C., and helped get Ashley to speak with the administrative people of child welfare. Ashley made an impact on the child welfare system and continues to be involved in speaking publicly about the system that failed her as a child. Ashley Rhodes Couture wrote the book 3 Little Words, which recounts her life story as a child in the foster care system. She had been in 14 foster homes. There were 73 child welfare administrators, 44 child welfare caseworkers, 19 foster parents, 23 attorneys, 17 psychologists, psychiatrists, and therapists, 5 guardian ad litem staff, 4 judges, 4 court personnel, 3 abuse registry workers, 2 primary caseworkers, 1 guardian ad litem, while her child welfare case was active in the states of Florida and South Carolina. Ashley recalls that out of these 195 people, only 2 were unpaid volunteers, and they made the most significant difference in her life. Ashley spoke publicly in Washington, D.C. about the importance of the guardian ad litem and their role in the lives of children who need permanency. And here are my references listed. I believe there are 8 references. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you, Weeblaha, for listening, and I hope that you enjoyed.